open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
State and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Good morning, Kentuckiana. I'm Debbie Robbins, and I'm always happy to be joined by my co-host, Bob Scott. He'll be coming to you via Zoom. There he is. And we want to welcome you to Kentucky's Voice. We are the conservative, common sense, Christian-based voice of the Commonwealth. And you're listening to free speech today. It comes right from our hearts. We want to tell you the truth about issues that are happening around here locally and nationally. And we always like to give ways for us to stand our ground and how we can make a difference. We don't spin our views here. Never. And if you share our opinions, or even if you have a different point of view, we always love hearing from you. And today is Friday, April the 10th, this edition of our show. And I want to welcome our WGTK 970 The Answer listeners today. And we would love for you to be a part of the show. Be a voice with us at 502-571-0970, 571-0970. And if you miss it here today, tell your friends. You can always go to YouTube. You can go to Facebook, but we're also on WBNA at 12:30, 4, and 7 p.m. local Louisville time, Eastern Standard Time. So we are excited that you are with us today. We thank you for those that support the program, our sponsors. We're very grateful because we're a listener-supported program. And if you can help us out or you feel led to be a part of the mission, you can always go to www.kyvoice.org. There's a link there where you can donate one time or become a regular person who gives, and we would be so grateful for your help. Anything you do to keep all of our voices heard. We really have a really good program today. I'm very excited about it. We're having Adam Gillette back. He is from the Accuracy in Media. He's been on the show before, but today he has some news about the University of Louisville. We'll have him on at the bottom of the hour. But Bob and I were talking earlier this week about President Trump and how we felt on Tuesday night when he decided to participate in the ceasefire in this war or this mission going on in Iran. And it just got me to thinking about this week in general, not only how the president thinks, but you know what, everybody listening out there, do you not believe we are living in some major historic times? Just think about what we've experienced in the last 10 days alone. It has been unbelievable. We've had Artemis 2 go up into space. They've gone to the far side of the moon. They're bringing back and showing us pictures from a side we've never seen before. They're paving the way for us to go back to the moon and to be there. They're splashing down tonight at 8:07. Also, a week ago today, the Supreme Court heard an oral argument on birthright citizenship. But what the historic part, was that the president was sitting in the oral arguments. That has never happened in the history of America, that a sitting president was there. And also I think about the first American Pope who gave the homily for the Catholic Church at St. Peter's Square in Italy last week. But one thing that really touched me as well, because I love that we do have, one good thing about social media is we can hear and see what our president is thinking on the spot at the moment. He shared a letter last Friday that was written by Franklin Graham. And if Mr. Producer can show that now, but if not, we'll show it when we come back, talking about whether or not President Trump would make it to heaven. And he laid out the gospel beautifully. And then we turn around on Sunday. Well, there's that wonderful letter right there from Franklin Graham. It was awesome. And then we turn right around on Sunday, and the president delivers a profanity-laced response to Iran, giving them a big lecture on they need to surrender and what they need to do. So that was on Easter Sunday. It drew a lot of criticism from his critics and even some people on our side. But I don't know about you. I love this president. And when we get back, we're going to talk about what happened and what's going on in his mind. We want you to help us out. 502-571-0970. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. And as we were talking about before the break, it's been a very historic week in America. And everybody, we get to experience this. We are in the middle of this. And Bob and I were talking about this earlier in the week, so many things that are happening. And Bob, I'm glad you're there. What do you think about what the president, we talked the other day, we talked about Tuesday night, how our hearts kind of stopped when he changed his mind about Iran. What is your take on that and all of his critics, the hypocrites who are filled with profanity-laced messages all the time, what they're thinking? What do you think about this?
Well, it's been said many times before, Trump plays 5D chess, with regard to it. It's even been mocked for that, but I'm sure there's a lot more to this than what we know about. I'm 100% sure of that. Mm-hmm. And I believe whether it's a reset, I think honestly, the history of Iran since they were taken over 47 years ago by an Islamic coup, has been to deflect, steal, lie, kill, and destroy. Does that sound familiar as far
yes.
as a verse from the Bible? And that's what they do. They do all of those things. So I don't think anybody, unless you have extreme rose-colored glasses on, believes that Iran is going to live up to their word. They're all everything they've done from a negotiating standpoint has either been intimidation or to stall and buy time. So I'm interested to see. I know already there's been, if you want to call the truce or whatever, again, whatever you want to call it, there's already been some infractions that have already happened by the Iranians with regard to it. So. As far as closing down the Strait of Hormuz, I don't know. I suspect, we're all for peace. President Trump's for peace,
right?
But I suspect we're going to be back at it here sooner than later.
Could be, and but what I love is that we as Americans, for the first time in history, and actually the world, we can hear what he's thinking. Now, he's not going to tell us everything, like you said.
No,
he plays chess.
No.
But we're engaged. He keeps us engaged. And I think it also keeps other countries on notice that you know, this man is a communicator, and he's going to get it out there, and I'm really grateful for that. And I know that a lot of people were very upset with him, and my heart was a little sickened when he had that very strong post come out on Sunday. But again, like you said, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I know this weekend are going to be some very important talks with the Vice President and Secretary of State and others that are going to be dealing with the Iranians. Yeah, here's this post. He said, Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one. There will be nothing like it. And he went on and on. So, and that scared people, and that really upset some people. But, you know, I like the way he communicates, Bob. It's like I've mentioned to you earlier before. I said, you know, in the Bible, God used a donkey to get his message across. Yeah. So, and I want to show, go ahead.
Well, let me tell you something.
Go ahead.
The Middle East, the only thing that they really anywhere in the Middle East that they understand and respond to is power.
Right.
You know, and I'm leaning more in this direction. Yeah, did I like what he said on Easter Sunday? No, you know, personally, but I understand, and a lot of people smarter than me that are in the know said that was said purposely, intentionally, well thought out, direct message to the Iranian cabal that's running that nation. To basically let them know and put the fear of God in them. And what do they do, Debbie? I mean, what did they do? This, and again, I'm going to get wound up here, but this is the heart of that regime.
Right.
They marched out innocent women and children to surround the power plants that President Trump was threatening to blow up. The same with the bridges. And I saw an Iranian insider being interviewed this morning, and he was just talking about probably most of those people, and this is somebody that's actually from Iran, were herded up and marched out to do that against their will. But it was either they do that or you be killed.
Or they die. I know. And you know, the blessing here in America, that doesn't happen. But I wanted to bring it back to America. You know, our president, like you said, he those were firm words, well thought out. And for example, last summer when he brought out the National Guard in Washington, D.C., very firmly laid that out. He got a lot of criticism, but I appreciate his leadership. And I wanted to play a little grandma here, if you all would let me play a grandma's testimony on why she likes our president and how he communicates. And maybe this will help calm some nerves of people. So, Mr. Producer Dan, let's listen to Grandma and what she had to say.
Come on in. Thank you. Yes, you can. Thank you. So nice. I like her. Please.
I like him too. One thing I like about him, he keeps it real, just like Grandma. I appreciate that because I can trust him because he tells exactly how he feels and what he thinks. Thank God for this president. I am filled, my cup runneth over. Because he allowed his constituents, his people, to come to my house to interview me, to talk about the murder of my grandson. It seemed like nobody cared. I'm an advocate for murder. I marched. I rallied. I pulled out other families in the District of Columbia that had murders and did not have answers. Ooh. We marched and we rallied, and nobody heard me, Democrats. Get mad at me. Until this Republican sent his constituents, his people out there to interview me in my home. Have you ever heard of a thing? Then they invited me twice before Congress to testify for the beautiful bill that's going to change crime in the district. If you kill somebody, okay, you take a life, you do life. Just that simple. If you do a harsh crime, you do harsh time. Just that simple. And then we need National Guard, and which we did years ago. He brought it on. I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be standing up for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back up off of him. And Grandma said it.
Hey, Grandma. I love it.
Said it.
I love Grandma. It's funny. My grandmother was very similar to her. I had a couple black friends that I grew up from a young age, and I can tell you right now, you don't ever want to get a black mother or grandmother mad at you.
No,
because
I don't think any mama or grandma.
yeah,
really.
Yeah. They'll come at you with both barrels, and
yes,
and it's not a white black issue. It's not. I'm sick and tired of the racist garbage that's being spewed around. It's about humanity and doing what's right. And as Christians, right in the sight of God, and also right by others. And to love our fellow man. And we all know that President Trump is far from perfect, but you know what? He's the first president in my lifetime that has not been afraid and not trying to be politically correct, but do the right thing. Both Republican and Democrat presidents did nothing about Iran, and they let that cancer continue to fester and foster. Some of our presidents threw millions, we know who I'm talking about, at that regime to try to pacify them, but they were in the process of enriching uranium.
Yes.
And don't think for a second, not one second, if they had the right kind of technology missile-wise, and they were getting close on that, that we would not see a nuclear bomb going off in our country, and probably specifically New York City.
And all over the Middle East. So, again, I just want to say to those that are concerned about our president and the way he communicates, he may not do it the way you want, but I'm so thankful for the results. I am too. I'm thankful for his courage over, I grew up with all I ever heard about was Iran, Iraq, and bombs and nuclear bombs, and being worried about that, and knowing in all the years I sang for the military and worked for chaplains and would hear and see the troops that were training for these missions and would go on these missions. It's just crazy. He kind of reminds me of Moses, where you hold that Moses stick up and they're doing the right thing. And the good news with him is he's not trying to kill people, like you were saying, put innocent Americans out and slaughter them for a cause like the Iranians are doing. No, they're just going after the evil and trying to eradicate it. And even though last Sunday, that message coming out at first, it just kind of jabbed at my heart. But after I thought about it and saw what it meant, I was like, wow, no matter what day of the year it is, we're in the middle of a spiritual warfare. We're in the middle of just war in general all the time. What do you think?
Yeah,
there,
and that's right. You know what, Debbie? It's Friday, and it's the end of the week, and we want our listeners to please. I know you got questions. There's been a lot going on, and I know that our cohorts, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. But so much going on. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a text at 502-571-0970. Again, our text line number is 502-571-0970. Text in right now. We love you. We appreciate you. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. We'll be right back after we go to this short break.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. And again, this has been a very historic week. We're just talking about historic moments. And even for our show, Kentucky's Voice, we're really thrilled that we've had an opportunity to interview two of the three leading candidates in the polls for the United States Senate a GOP nomination, and a couple of the others. We're very excited about participating in this election this year, and we want you to be very excited about participating and making sure that you go vote on May 19th. And again, I want to get back to our president and people just maligning him left and right, and maligning his beautiful wife, Melania, also. I really appreciated her courage yesterday. She just made an announcement that she was going to come out at 2:30 p.m. and give an announcement on a topic that ended up being one that is really bothering both sides of the political aisle, and that I do not want to influence your desire to get out and vote, because people, Americans, Kentuckians, we have to vote. So I just wanted, Mr. Producer, just show 1 minute of Melania Trump yesterday, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Here we
Jeffrey
go.
Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation.
Thank you.
I've
That's
never
great.
been friends.
That's great. What she just said is, she says, I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I'm really glad that she came out yesterday to answer the questions about the Jeffrey Epstein files. And she also behooved the Congress to let the victims come forward and testify. So maybe once and for all, people will hear what's going on. But, they might be afraid, because maybe some of them are going to be, it might, point to them. I don't know. But all I know is I don't want any issue to become so big or come between us using our voter rights to make a difference. We cannot back down on our conservative philosophy and what we believe. What do you think about that, Bob?
No, I agree. And it was really, honestly, a pretty amazing talk that she gave, and what a novel idea to allow witnesses to testify, and,
Yeah.
and hear directly from them, and stop the innuendos. Here's the deal. Everybody seems to forget. Joe Biden had access to the same information for all 4 years that he was president of this United States. And what did he do with it? Nothing.
Right.
He sat on it. And let me tell you, if Trump's name was in that in a significant way or an incriminating way, I can promise you his name would have been rolled out very quickly, because they all pretty much knew that he was going to run again. And of course he did. And that would have, in their minds, they would have known that any incriminating evidence would have sunk him. So just sit back, use your common sense, people.
Right.
I am not a conspiratorialist. I do think there is a lot of truth in, and I've heard this saying said many times, what is a conspiracy today, a lot of times ends up being facts tomorrow, And again, Trump made some missteps, I feel, by saying there's nothing to see here. Now, he may have honestly felt that, but I think he could have cleared the air like a breath of fresh air, and just let come out what's out. And then, I think, again, her idea of letting the witnesses testify, the people that have really, the ones that have been damaged, let them come in and have their say in court,
have their
so to
say.
speak.
I agree. Well, also in those that have been accused or falsely accused, this is their opportunity to clear the air. I'm really proud of her for doing that herself. She's a very proactive first lady, and they have, between the two of them, I will say they've come after the press, the media. They've defended themselves, and I think what I took from that too yesterday, Bob, is that I appreciated them standing up for themselves, conservatives, because I think that we many times just let our voices be silenced. But I also get irritated with our side too when we don't do our research and we don't find out for ourselves, and that we don't even believe the people that these things have happened to when they come out and they tell you their story. And it's proven that they're right, that we still, I don't know what it is about some people, they just can't see the forest for the trees. But I admired her courage, and she defended her family, and he's defended himself and his family. And again, I like that we have a president who is so communicative with us. We may not like his methods, but he is communicating with us, which so many presidents in the past and politicians in general just do not do. So I'm really grateful for that. I was really grateful for Jim Waters, our colleague and co-host this week, and his interviews that he's had so far with Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them yet, Bob, but they were really great. We all pitched in on the questions that were being asked, and I love that Jim actually gave them an opportunity to answer thoroughly without being interrupted. So if our listeners, if you haven't seen those shows from this week, I hope you'll go on YouTube or Facebook, find those with Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr. And next week we will have Nate Morris, and I think there's a couple of others. Who was the name of the other guy that you were talking about, Bob? Another candidate? What's his name?
I know Ferris has been one. He's been on at least once on Kentucky's Voice. He is another candidate. He is definitely not polling in the top three. I'm not going to say he's going to lose because of that, but he's another one, Michael Ferris, that has a lot of very strong conservative / towards libertarian opinions, and I personally respect his voice, and as I do with all of the candidates, anybody that's willing to jump into the public fray,
right?
I have immense respect for. Now we are getting some texts in from our text line. So again, that number is 502-571-0970. Some is a continuation, not necessarily in line of what we are discussing right now, but really they all come into line. They come into line.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was NATO has proved to be deceitful and shameful,
yes,
which is the truth.
Yes.
We have put trillions of dollars into their defense, and it's only been by the efforts of President Trump to get them moved off the schneid, so to speak, and start putting some money into their own defense. And it was disgusting. We were making this move, and we had to have our bombers, the B-2 bombers, fly all the way from St. Louis because they were denied access to bases. I believe it was in Spain and Great Britain.
Exactly. That was ridiculous.
Initially, because of that. And, those are things, they're egregious, should not happen if we really are in that together. And President Trump has said, and I hate to say it, we have their back, but do they have ours? And not just in this situation that we find ourselves in right now, but as far as moving down the road. So we'd like to hear your comments on that. I know that our colleague, Andrew Cooperrider, has absolutely been killing it with regard to the Kentucky State Supreme Court justices, basically going against the Constitution and our state legislature by saying they didn't have the right to impeach a sitting judge who is clearly making decisions that are against the law and really unconstitutional as well. So are we heading for a constitutional crisis?
I hope we catch up on that next week, Bob. We're going to go deeper on our state legislature, on what's going on there, right?
And I am planning on having some really great voices in the legislature on next week. So These are shows that you're not going to want to miss. We thank you for listening to Kentucky's Voice. We'll be right back.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We are so excited that you are with us because we're getting ready to switch gears to a totally different topic, but yet very much a local, state, and national topic. We are really thrilled to have back with us today a young man named Adam Gillette. He is quite the leader in a company called Accuracy in Media, and he's been with us 2 or 3 times because he's been working really hard in Kentucky, helping us go into the university setting and to uncover DEI secrecy going on, because our president made it very clear through executive order that there is not going to be any more of false diversity, equity, inclusion law or things like that shoved down our throats, our students' throats, or shouldn't be, or even in administration, hiring. It should all be merit-based. But Adam is the guy who is really just taken charge of our universities across the country and helping us to free our kids to be their own thinkers, their own critical thinkers. So, Adam, I'm going to toss it over to you. I know you've got some new news for us today in another university. So let us hear it. What's going on?
Sure. Well, we've just released our 4th hidden camera investigation from the University of Kentucky, perhaps the most DEI-obsessed university in America that we've found. And once again, we hear the same thing from employee after employee at that university. The DEI departments were rebranded, but they still do the same work. The DEI employees they got new job titles, but they still do the same work. And none of this affected curriculum at all. In the words of the most recent social work administrator we spoke with, DEI is, quote, essential. And they're continuing to push it into every facet of education, particularly in sociology, criminology, and education degrees. This is the 4th employee, as I mentioned, at UK. We have more coming. I'm getting to the point where I'm wondering, is there anyone at UK not working in DEI? I'm not sure.
Oh, my goodness. I just can't understand this. I don't know. It's really tough as a citizen to know what to do about it. I mean, there's so many issues that sometimes we just feel helpless. And I don't like that at all. I don't like being helpless. I'm a go-getter. I'm somebody who's proactive. I want to get things done. Tell us, what can we do? Give me a specific example. Like, what are they saying? What are they doing? And help us to know what to do.
Well, first off, we set up a website, DEIinkentucky.com, DEIinkentucky.com, where you can send one message that goes directly to the email addresses of the trustees and some relevant elected officials. You could send our pre-written message or write your own. But Kentucky needs a Florida-style DEI ban, which prohibits the promotion of identity politics. You should be allowed to discuss controversial topics like communism or fascism or DEI in a politics class, in a philosophy class. It doesn't need to be in math class. It doesn't need to be in every education class. And they should never be promoting any sorts of politics. And I can't see why anyone would object to the promotion of identity politics. What we're seeing in Kentucky is some of the most radical things we've seen in the country. And I love the irony that they claim to love diversity. They claim to love inclusion. 91% of the political donations from the University of Kentucky employees go to Democrats. True diversity, I think, includes diversity of thought, but they don't have any of that diversity at the University of Kentucky.
I know. I mean, I don't know about the University of Kentucky. I'm listening to you and I believe you, and I want to see those videos again. I do know here in Jefferson County, the Jefferson County Public Schools, I'm aware that they had over 300 jobs that were DEI jobs, Adam, and they said they were told to remove those jobs, eliminate those jobs. What did they do? They reclassified them, Adam. They didn't get rid of anyone. So that's outrageous. But what do we do? What do we do as citizens? How do we stop that? And is that same thing going on at the University of Kentucky? And how is it? And I remember when my son started the university too, and we went to all the orientation classes, there was a big section they had to attend on all of the DEI. It was infuriating to me as a parent, because if you're a good parent, you've taught your kids how to respect others, how to love others, how to know I don't need anyone teaching my children manners. I've done that. I've developed their character and their training. So toss it back to you. What do you say?
Yeah, and such horrible people to learn manners from. Again, a lot of people mistakenly think that DEI is just modern affirmative action, and it's so much worse than that. The premise of DEI essentially replaces the golden rule with new moral values, and these values break down the world into oppressors and oppressed. White people are oppressors. Men are definitely oppressors. America is certainly an oppressor. And it says that you're justified in using violence against oppressors because that's merely resistance to oppression. Many people on college campuses use that logic to defend the October 7th terror attack. Some of the worst use that logic to defend the 9/11 terror attack. These are the values that are being promoted with your tax dollars. Because as you pointed out, we see this in traditional public schools on the K through 12 level in a big way in red states. And no one wants to believe that their school district would do that. No one wants to believe that every day they're sending their fourth grader to an indoctrination factory. Because to accept that is to think that you're doing harm to your child. Well, I have terrible news for you. If you're sending your child to a traditional K through 12 school, you probably are. I've personally been undercover in over 250 school districts across the country, exclusively in red states, and we find exactly what you mentioned in district after district. These full-time equity officers have a job to get the premise of DEI and critical race theory into every facet of education. It's terrible at the university level, but it's even more dangerous and destructive in kindergarten.
Now, what happens if a student speaks out and they go and they come home and they want to fight this? What have you seen that's happened to students who speak out, or parents?
Well, think about it this way. You're required to do these assignments and to take these courses that are entirely focused on promoting social justice and DEI as a fact, as a way of life, not as a political philosophy that some radicals sign on to. So good luck completing the coursework accurately with your own morals and your own values when they're teaching people that this stuff should be taught as fact. Oftentimes alongside DEI, they promote what's called anti-racism as fact. And the whole premise of anti-racism is that if you're not a racist, you must be an anti-racist. And to be an anti-racist, you have to engage in social justice activism, promoting the notion that America is systemically racist and capitalism is inherently racist. And if you don't want to sign on to those things, if you don't want to sign on and say that you believe America is systemically racist and capitalism is inherently racist, well, then you are branded and labeled as a racist. That's what we're dealing with and what we're funding with our own tax dollars in red states.
Now, are you saying that in universities are kids actually having to sign off on a paper or in a class though to agree with that? Are they given something along those lines and they're having to sign off on these things?
Great question. So these things are taught as facts, just as being taught as water is wet in many of these courses, particularly in criminology, education, and sociology. Previously, many students and staffers had to sign on to diversity statements saying these things. Now they simply print the diversity statements in the curriculum, in the syllabus for many of these things. So they don't have to sign it per se, but it's put forth as fact for them to understand that this will be a large part of the course. And many times these are in gen ed courses. So even if you're, just a casual center-left person or apolitical when you're in this class, you're being taught that these things are a way of life. You're not being taught that this is one premise and one way in which some people, view the world. You're being taught that, no, this is the reality. If you're not a racist, you must be an anti-racist. Well, it takes a bold person to speak up against a professor and many students who view that as the way of life, and you're really the weirdo who doesn't want to sign on to that. It's essentially a way to bully people into being ideologically quiet, never speaking out, into getting them to write policy papers and answer tests in ways that are inconsistent with their own values. And most dangerously, it normalizes their hate. It normalizes their radical Marxist ideas. And that's what's truly dangerous.
Yeah, and I know now when the president, he signed the executive order to eliminate this, if we see this with our own eyes and if we hear complaints, and when we can go to your website too, but who can I contact literally, I know I keep asking this question over and over, but it is infuriating. What can I do? I would like to go and give a speech in front of a class or whatever and say, no. But it just seems I think a lot of listeners too probably feel like we're in a losing battle. But what can we do?
Yeah, the fortunate thing is, in many ways, the tide is finally turning a bit. I wouldn't say this is the beginning of the end, but I would at least say it's the end of the beginning. The primary thing we promote is for people to go to DEIinKentucky.com and send one message directly to the relevant elected officials. The president's executive order, unfortunately, isn't really worth the paper it's printed on. It was passed, it was signed into law, great, but it's been hung up in courts ever since, and it probably won't amount to much. The Department of Education is trying to take further action against accreditors, and hopefully that will be more strategic and more focused on impact instead of kind of signaling virtue. If you have a child in traditional K-12 schools, pull them out of that school tomorrow. Again, this is coming from someone who's been to 250 school districts in red states. I would never send a child to a traditional K-12 school anymore. They are that bad. For university, honestly, if you don't want to send your child to Hillsdale or Liberty, a great opportunity now is the University of Austin, which you can attend remotely. It's not some wacky right-wing school. It's a school focused on a classically liberal education, which is largely apolitical.
Right.
And it's an incredibly impressive school that's growing rapidly. So the University of Austin is a great choice. But you should never be electing someone who signs on to these DEI laws that aren't worth the paper they're printed on. You have to call out these politicians and demand a real DEI law that prohibits promoting identity politics.
I agree with that. Here, what have you found and uncovered at the University of Louisville? We're running out of time on this segment, but we'll be back. And I'd love to hear what you have found at the University of Louisville, right here in our own hometown. So,
well, we released one investigation with pretty much the exact same thing, them bragging about just renaming the DEI job titles, doing the same work with a different department name and different employee names, but doing the exact same work. Such the same way, they are also keeping it in the curriculum and promoting it as, in their words, essential. And we actually have some upcoming investigations into the University of Louisville in the science departments that are quite a bit terrifying. Yeah. I don't think you'll like what you see.
Right. I know that the Speed School is being endowed with a lot of great money to help them broaden and get bigger. And I'm just wondering what might be happening there, because that's such an amazing place. But I would hate to see it poisoned with this type of or this type of rhetoric. Yes. So we're going to be right back with Adam, and just share some more, Adam. Tell us what we can do. This is so infuriating to me, but we'll be right back. Let's send us your questions.
kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We are talking about a really serious situation. I think it's really a heart issue on teaching lies, teaching people to hate one another. They call it DEI, fancy, diversity, inclusion, equity. Sounds so good, but it's really teaching people to hate one another. And I really loathe that kind of thinking. And I know those of you out there listening, you do as well. And I really appreciate people like Adam Gillette who are going behind the scenes, trying to root it out, dig it out, find it in the universities, find it in our schools. And we as parents and grandparents and citizens, we need to be paying attention. We need to speak up and do our part. So, hey, Bob, I know you had a question for Adam, and you got some insight here. So you guys have at it.
We were talking off camera during the break, and Adam, the Kentucky State Legislature, as you know, passed. It was House Bill, I think 4 last year that said that they were supposedly going to be eliminating DEI, would be against the law in the state, and there was even language written into it that the Attorney General of our state could go and exact fines, against it. Anybody that was trying to, continue to promote it. But you said nay. There, again, it's been another workaround. And that there needs to be still further action taken. And sadly, nothing happened, even though it's been, I know, called to the legislature's attention, and it just really frustrates me as a voter, as a conservative Christian, that nothing is being done. I'm not surprised, because that's the nature of politics. And you even had mentioned, was this done with the idea of really doing the right thing and trying to get something enacted, or was this done to get votes? And we know there is a supermajority of Republicans in Frankfort, and
this should be a no-brainer issue. This should be a no-brainer issue for them. And I think some legislation, I think Bob was up there this year, but it just didn't get any attention, no traction. But Adam, again, explain to us, because I hope there's a listener out there that's going to take this on. There's nothing that says that citizens cannot take this on and go to your legislators and you craft a bill. You can do it. You can learn to write that. Go get some people to sign on. So, Adam, tell us again, walk us through what we could do.
Well, let me tell you about a heck of a contrast just in this past week, because this past week we released 2 investigations. Of course, the fourth part of the 4th hidden camera investigation into the University of Kentucky, and our first investigation into the University of North Texas, Denton. Well, the next day, the representative who serves in that district called for an investigation in Texas into that university. That representative, I haven't seen that from any of the representatives near the University of Kentucky or Louisville. And then about an hour and a half ago, the Attorney General of the state of Texas, Ken Paxton, announced an investigation into the University of North Texas, Denton. Same situation. Meanwhile, 4 videos at the University of Kentucky, crickets. A couple videos at the University of Louisville, crickets. And another contrast, Texas and Florida signed on to a new accreditation body, along with 4 other states. They created their own new accreditor that can allow accreditations for institutions without the promotion of DEI. One of the excuses used in Kentucky is, oh, we can't do this. We got to let them keep pushing the DEI because we want accreditation. Well, Florida stood up to him and said, yeah, we're going to ban the promotion of identity politics. We dare you not to accredit our universities. And they backed down. In fact, a number of those accreditors have even temporarily announced that they're suspending DEI as a protocol. Yet, nevertheless, Kentucky passed this weak bill that allows them to push DEI into any facet of the curriculum, which is unacceptable and outrageous. If you want to push far-left ideas and far-left politics, do it at the Democratic Socialist of America. Don't do it with my tax dollars. And if you want to claim you're a supermajority Republican state, we're going to do great things. Well, why is Texas, with a much smaller Republican majority, totally kicking your butts in terms of getting good things done?
You are so right. And I remember now from your last visit here, that is the exact argument that you made. And I'm praying that a citizen out there is listening, one that has time to take something like this on. I mean, I'm with you too. I'm there, but we're sitting here on this program today. This is Kentucky's voice. And again, it's would you mind explaining that one more time? I would think it's so important that we understand that the accreditation, we could put a group together and eliminate what servers they're using for accreditation. Re-explain. I'm sorry. You just go for it.
No, that's okay. It's wonky and involved. Universities get approved or accredited by institutional accreditors. Florida, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and I think it's Georgia and Tennessee launched their own new accreditation body where universities can sign on to it and get accredited without having to buy into DEI. Kentucky hasn't joined it.
Oh, and now I didn't mean to interrupt. So they're doing this together, not state by state.
Correct.
Okay, so we could join in on that if we want to. Get
Absolutely.
one of our legislators to get excited about that and join in. That's a phenomenal idea.
Yes. At the same time, the federal government, the Department of Education, announced a reform project into accreditation, and they created a committee to focus on this and to root out DEI in the accreditation. And I kid you not, it's called the AIM committee, which we absolutely love seeing. It's like accreditation, something with an I, modernization. And I'm like, was that for us? Is that a shout out? What's going on here? But they launched the AIM committee about a month and a half ago to root out DEI from accreditation. And I think basically to force the accreditors into reforming, because there's separately these institutional accreditors for each college, like education, sociology, and criminology. And those are the worst. And I think the Department of Education is trying to lean on them. And we know the Trump administration, we know how they work to a degree. The more attention an issue is getting, the more likely they are to show up and solve the problem. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
You're right.
So people sharing these videos, sending these emails, talking about these issues, sending messages, that gets the attention of the federal government. And I think that is also one avenue that will help us to potentially fix this issue at least a little bit.
So let me ask you a question.
Yes, please.
Drilling down here from a practical Kentucky state level, what can our listeners do? Who do they need to be contacting to get this ball rolling, to get this cleaned up?
Well, that's why we have that action alert at DEIinkentucky.com, because it sends one message to the trustees, to the attorney general, and to some of the relevant legislators who sponsored this prior legislation. And we kind of regularly update the pre-written message to things like, you need to update your DEI bill, and then we'll update it to, you need to join into this accreditation body. That way they're getting a lot of messages with a couple different topics that we're discussing right here. And all you have to do is go to that webpage and click send. You could write your own pre-written message if you'd like, or you could write your own message, or you could just use the pre-written one and click send. But also getting attention on it and sharing these videos, I think, gets the attention of the Trump administration.
Yes, I agree. Now, Adam, again, what is the website? Say it again. Give it 2 more times. Tell us. Right?
DEIinkentucky.com, DEIinkentucky.com, and your message goes directly to the legislators.
That's wonderful. And then again, also, I'm so concerned still K through 12. That's where my heart just aches to see what goes on K through 12. That's where kids, 0 to 5 is when children's character is formed. And then, 6 to 12 is when they are in training. And we have to, so what do we do there? When we email you, what would happen for K through 12? Who would that go to?
Well, we don't have an action alert set up for that at this time because there's no pending legislation and no great opportunity. But I'll tell you, take your kids out of traditional K through 12 schools.
I know.
And you mentioned all of these equity officers that have new titles. Here's what they do every day, 9 to 5. It's their job to get the principles of DEI and critical race theory into every facet of education, including math class. It's their job to make sure the teachers, even if they're not aligned with this nonsense, are still promoting these principles. And that means that in math class, they'll have questions in the side of your textbook like, how hard was it to solve this arithmetic on this page? What factors might have made it more challenging for other students? And that then prompts the teacher, who's been trained by the equity officer, to have a discussion about race and systemic racism in America in math class and how it affects people's math skills.
That's
Happening
outrageous.
in Kentucky schools as we speak.
That is outrageous. And I do know this. I know someone who did go on the website for JCPS, and they had to dig deep to go into the curriculum, and they did find a lot of these DEI ways of writing in there in the curriculum about DEI. So parents just have to take charge of that and speak up as well. I'll tell you, this is a wicked web that we've allowed to be woven. And I appreciate you so much helping us learn to break it up and to get tough on it. It's overwhelming. So I'm really praying some of our listeners out there that education is their passion. It's their heart. Please, this is your mission. This is a time where you can really serve. We all have different talents. We all have different things that we can do. And I just want to behoove our listeners again to go look up Adam Guillette, Accuracy in Media. Again, give us that website again. And we're going to keep talking, but I just want to keep saying it because people are listening as we're going.
That's right. It's DEIinkentucky.com. Our website is aim.org, AIM.org. And Accuracy in Media, we're active on every social media platform, and we have a heck of a lot more investigations coming from Kentucky in the next few weeks, and I think you'll be outraged by what you see.
I know. And Adam, I just want to kind of close out with this. So guys like you who do this, what is it that drove you? What prompted you and inspired you to want to take on this issue? What one thing got you going?
Well, I saw this nonsense when I was in college, and it outraged me then. I had to deal with it back then, and I've seen how it's gotten so much worse with the massive administrative bloat in higher education, where the administrators now outnumber the left-wing faculty members, and they're just taxpayer-funded activists, and they're obnoxiously smug, and they think they are morally entitled to your tax dollars to push their politics. And, I don't do the higher ed investigations anymore. Instead, as you've seen, I go back and confront them. And it's incredibly awkward when I go and confront these people and show that I caught them on tape. But I'll tell you what, taking those smug smiles off their faces when they realize they might be held accountable for what they've done for the first time in their life, that brings at least a little bit of joy to me.
Oh my goodness. We so appreciate it. I really appreciate you being here with us. And we're going to keep in contact with you and have you back on again, because we've got another year before our legislature meets, but we have time between now and then to get on them. So everybody, thank you so much for being here on this Friday on April the 10th. God bless America. God bless our president. Please pray for all of our leaders, and we hope to see you back on Monday. Thanks for joining us on Kentucky's Voice.